Hey, bada boom, bada bing. This is Agent Steelbeak, and you're listening to the St. Canard Files. But I gotta tell you, listening to Dipwing Dork Podcast ain't gonna win you any brownie points with me. Hey, listen, when you leave, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. Bye-bye.
I feel like I should say something clever here, if only I was a better writer. Welcome to the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. We're your hosts, Mike Russo and
Tiffany Silverbraun.
But that's not all. Who else is with us tonight?
Well, it's Stan back once again, and to enjoy all the wonders of a Comic-Con without that con funk.
Ooh. Been there, done that. Don't want to do it again. So how are you guys tonight?
Pretty good.
Not bad.
Good. We're actually only recording this the very next night after we recorded Kitty Cat Caper, so we don't have any fresh news, although we definitely want to once again wish Tiffany a happy 40th birthday.
Yay.
Happy birthday, Tiff.
Thank you.
What'd you do last weekend?
I did a few things. I had a birthday party. I like to do, when it's a special birthday, I have them coincide with whatever the anniversary theme is. Stone is. So like I had a silver party for my 25th, and your 40th anniversary is your ruby anniversary. So I had a red themed party.
Nice.
And I also went Disneyland adjacent, not quite into Disneyland. I went to downtown Disney and hung out there and did some things, and went to Trader Sam's, my favorite tiki bar.
That place seems really cool. Next time I get to Disney World, I want to check that out.
Yeah, it's super fun. I bought a tiki mug, the zombie mug, and I got they already have Halloween stuff out everywhere, so I got some Haunted Mansion stuff, and they had a bunch of skeleton dance merchandise, that's Silly Symphonies, so I got some of that too.
The Silly Symphony they won't put on Disney Plus.
Yep.
But they definitely want you to buy the merchandise. Although Disney Plus is in a better position than HBO Max right now. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
That was sad. All those Sesame Street episodes gone. All those cartoons that got taken off. I don't know what's going on, but it makes me want to unsubscribe to that.
They took Sesame Street off HBO?
They took like 200 classic episodes, like 60s and 70s and 80s stuff.
Wow.
They also took off a lot of modern cartoons that were popular, things like Infinity Train. I think they're doing it because they don't want to have to pay royalties.
Apparently a bunch of brand new stuff that was coming out, a new Batman series, a Bugs Bunny movie, a Daffy Duck movie, all of that's not happening now. They're still getting made, but they're not going to be showing up on HBO Max. So I guess maybe Cartoon Network. Not that Cartoon Network's doing great these days either, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But it definitely makes Disney Plus look a lot more attractive than ever, doesn't it?
Yeah.
They're not pulling this kind of nonsense. They better not take my bonkers off.
Or my Darkwing.
I do hope that Disney Plus starts putting more of their shorts up, because they have barely any.
I'm not enthusiastic. I'm not hopeful. I should say I'm not hopeful. I'd be very enthusiastic if they did it. I'm just not. I think Darkwing will pop up on Blu-ray sooner or later if the new series gets going.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a given at this point. But should we move on to the issue? Because we have a lot to say about this one.
Yeah.
Indeed we do.
All right. So there is a lot going on this issue. So it's issue 6 of Joe Book's Darkwing Duck, titled St. Canard Comic Expo Fest-O-Rama. That's the title, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it only shows up in a sign on a splash page, and I'm not sure if it was the actual title, but that's it, right? St.
Might as
Canard
well be.
Comic Expo Fest-O-Rama. Now with some comics. Anyway, so this is a pretty important one. This is a big one. References galore and the return of a fan favorite villain, which is why Stan is here. But speaking of Stan, can you tell us what our cover looks like?
So our cover features Darkwing and Gosalyn in the middle, surrounded by a gaggle of cosplayers cosplaying as famous Darkwing villains, and I will go through them lightning fast.
Although I should say, it's actually Drake. Drake is on the cover for once.
Yeah. But in terms of the cosplay villains, we have Suffrage, Steelbeak, Cat Hankerus, One Shot, Jambalaya Jake and Gumbo, Bushroot, Steerminator, Bugmaster, Negaduck, Liquidator, Quackerjack, Ammonia Pine, Tusternini, Megavolt.
Did you get Moriarty?
I did not mention him. Yes, Moriarty is there as well.
And that's it. That's just about everybody.
Just about.
So this is going to be a really fun issue. So I think we should just jump into it. We start with Drake, Launchpad, Honker, and Gosalyn in the car, driving their minivan, of course. And they're excited. Gosalyn wants to get to the Comic-Con. And really great line from Drake, where she says if she stayed out of trouble for a whole week, they could go. But he reminds her 2 of those days they were sick with the flu. And 4 of them, they were imprisoned in Razor Quill's lair. And Gosalyn, great line. I hear Christine Cavanaugh. She's like, well, sure, if you want to get hung up on a technicality.
Yep.
So, Tiff, what happens next?
So they pull up. Drake is upset about all the prices being expensive. Honker wants to get food because he says his blood sugar is low. And so they go up to a hot dog stand, and it's our buddy Stigma selling hot dogs still.
Nice. But he's upped his prices. It's gone from 75 cents to $12.
Oh,
Yeah.
Inflation will do that.
Actually, I think he's just doing it because it's at a convention.
Yeah,
That
of
could be
course.
too.
We've all been to conventions. We know how much they gouge just for bottled water.
Yeah.
Look at Gosalyn's face in the minivan when they pull up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's big happy.
Her face is pressed up against the glass. Look at her face in the next panel. Her eyes are gigantic. It's so funny. And Stegmunt asks Drake if he knows him from somewhere, and Drake's like, no. So Stan, they rush into the Comic-Con. We get this great full-page spread. What kinds of stuff do we see here?
Oh, we see all kinds of things. We see that Wiffle Boy Studios has a giant television thing. We see vendors selling items. Macabre Outfitters has a booth.
That would be my favorite.
Yeah. You know, there's lots of costumes in here. Most of them unidentifiable, though I did spot a Boba Fett hidden in the crowd.
Max and Roxanne are there too.
Yep.
And Pog World.
Yeah. Who remembers Pogs?
Yeah. Remember Ralph? They're back in Pog form. I see what I think is unmistakably Funko Pops.
Yeah, right near the Sailor Moon cosplayer.
Yeah, lots and lots of stuff.
I love that it says St. Canard Comic Expo Fest-O-Rama now with some comics, which is exactly how I feel about Comic-Con. I've been going to Comic-Con since the 90s, and it used to be a straight up comic convention. Now it's like everything else.
But mostly Funko Pops.
Yeah.
Every new comic store, every new collectible toy store is mostly Funko Pops.
Yeah.
There's a Newberry Comics in my local mall, and it's a big mall. It's actually very, very crowded. It defies expectations. You think malls are dead these days. Not the malls of Long Island, not all of them here. But it's a big comic store. Newberry Comics doesn't have a single comic, but it has a whole wall of Funko Pops.
Huh.
That's
just how things are going. So what happens next, Tiffany?
So Goslin is super excited looking at all the costumes, and Drake is poo-pooing all of it and thinks that they're all amateur and that Jambalaya Jake has a better costume than these people. And then you see someone cosplaying as Jambalaya Jake, and he's got a stuffed gumbo with him.
Do you notice the guy cosplaying is clearly a duck, but he has like human feet?
Yeah.
And that's when Drake turns around and notices he is surrounded by cosplayers as the villains.
Yep.
And it's not the same characters as the cover. It's mostly the same villains, but different cosplayers. Stan, do we have anybody new?
We do have a couple new ones. We have someone cosplaying as Dr. Fossil. We have a cosplayer dressed as Paddywhack. We have an animatronic cosplayer and a Lilliput cosplayer.
And a non-Steerminator Taurus Bulba.
Yep.
Yeah. The Paddywhack one is pretty creepy.
Yes, very creepy.
Yes.
Yes. So, Darkwing gets mad at Goslin and tells her, you're not supposed to admire the bad guys. And right behind Goslin are references that are right up my alley. Right up my alley. Because behind her is a whole shelf full of Godzilla figures. And I can name all these guys. I think the top left one, the brown one, is Kong. Just a hunch. Next to him is Baragon, then Godzilla, and an adult Mothra. You can tell because of the wings. Woo-hoo! Yeah, I know you love Mothra. The middle shelf is Rodan, obviously by the wing. Mogura. I think the green one behind her head is King Ghidorah. Just a hunch. And then the lower shelf, that's definitely Hedorah, the smog monster on the left. Gigan, and then Biollante, the big crocodile-looking thing. So let's remember that James Silvani loves Godzilla too. Have you guys ever seen the art he's done that he's made prints of Godzilla and Gamera doing a soft shoe together?
I have not.
They've got canes and like straw hats, and they're dancing together.
That's awesome.
I gotta find a copy of it and show you, Tiffany. I think you would get a kick out of it.
What, you're not going to show me?
I'll show you too, but I know Tiffany's the Godzilla fan.
I like Godzilla too.
You still have to
Maybe
watch
not
Godzilla versus Biollante and tell me about it.
Yes, I do still need to watch it. I'm very slow with these things.
I'll definitely show you, Stan. No, of course. But of course, Stan, what happens next? What's this whole sequence? What goes on next?
Well, as Darkwing's arguing with a guy about I guess he's trying to sell an unreleased Taurus Bulba biopic.
Which has a commercial for some old Quacker Jack toys.
Yeah.
I want to see those.
But I love in the background of this one, there's a bunch of Ninja Turtle references.
Which ones?
We got Bebop, Krang, Fugitoid. Why am I drawing a blank on the alligator guy now?
Oh, Leatherhead.
Leatherhead, yeah.
And there was a super obscure character in the Playmates toy line. It was a mutant kangaroo named Walkabout. I'm pretty sure that's who this is.
Yeah, and there's
also
foot soldier next to him.
Yes, the foot soldier too.
Who's the bunny one?
That's the kangaroo.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the one in the hat.
That is the kangaroo. I don't see a bunny.
No. There's one in between, like right next to the right of like Krang.
Oh, that's probably Yosagi Yojimbo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see a bunny. He's just not colored
he's right
in.
between the Fugitoid and Krang.
Right. So Darkwing's mad because there's no Drake's mad because there's no Darkwing Duck merchandise. But Honker finds a knockoff gas gun, which explodes into flames when he drops it.
Yeah.
And the
also, who else loves the Megavolt Valentine?
Yeah, I know.
I get a charge out of you.
Yeah.
There were Darkwing Duck Valentines, though, and wasn't one of them Megavolt?
Yes, one of them was, and I think he actually said the same thing.
That would make sense. Remember the And we all remember the Playmates Darkwing Duck gas gun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
I
thing
have
was
one.
not filled with kerosene and flint. You put
No.
vegetable oil in that thing.
It was vegetable glycerin, which is the same thing that's in vape pens.
And it never worked.
Yeah.
And so like the seller's also trying to sell them an unlicensed print of the Bugmaster as a mermaid on top of a British phone booth.
Yeah, and that's pretty funny if you know comic conventions and what it's like on Artist Alley and the stuff that they sell.
Oh, I'm sure. And the look on Drake's face, he's like face palming so hard he's pulling his beak off practically.
Yeah.
And it just gets worse for him because he asks, why isn't anyone dressed as a superhero? And along comes Launchpad dressed as Gizmo Duck.
Yep.
And
Complete with working microwave to heat up his meat packets.
Yeah.
And the line of the story basically, Launchpad says, "How do I look?" And Drake says, "Like a sidekick who's asking to be on the unemployment line." But it's a cool costume. He's on a unicycle. He has one of those plastic Back to the Future visors on his face,
Yeah.
like the ones they sold at Pizza Hut.
Yep.
Yeah. They got really popular for a while.
Yeah.
So Launchpad goes off with Goslin for the costume contest, and Drake gets stuck with Honker. Normally, these comics are really good with keeping them in character, but I really don't think Drake would be this mean to Honker to actually call him the wrong name spitefully.
Well, I will forgive it because of what's on the very next page.
I don't know, though. He calls him Honkfoot Muddlebean. And that's, for a guy who, he knows his neighbors are named Muddlefoot, he's just doing that spitefully. That's a little harsh for Drake.
But, he sort of apologizes on the next page.
He is in a really bad mood.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. So, he says to Honker, what do you want to do? And Honker wants to head over to Artist Alley so he can see the artist responsible for Math Man and Calculator Boy.
Yeah, I think he needs issue number 17 to complete his collection.
Yeah.
Behind Drake, who is that? Looks like a bust of who?
Yeah, it looks like a duck version of Dr. Victor Von Doom from Fantastic Four fame.
Yeah, absolutely. That one is pretty on the nose.
Yeah.
So great. I like this meta gag. Drake and Honker get in line, and Honker makes the comment, "As creators of the world's most revered and celebrated art form, even those who work on the most obscure comic books are held in the highest esteem and worshipped like gods of old." And Drake shoots this look. The look, this is my reading. He's not looking at us. He's looking at Sparrow and Silvani.
Yep.
Who are drawing him in this page. Like, are you guys for real?
Totally.
Like, you would think he's looking at you, but we know better. Speaking of Silvani and Sparrow, Tiffany, what happens next?
So then you see like the duck versions of them welcoming their fans, signing autographs on their heads. And you see
the duck version of Aaron Sparrow looks a lot like Aaron Sparrow.
Yeah. And then you see someone come up and she wants a drawing in her sketchbook. And she says the theme in her sketchbook is real life villains and asks him to draw a splatter phoenix.
Which then comes to life and emerges from the book. Yep. We should mention he's drawing her with the ink he had delivered 2 issues ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she pops out of the book. So, guys, when you hear her voice, do you hear Brush with Oblivion Splatter Phoenix, or do you hear Paint Misbehaving Splatter Phoenix?
Definitely
Brush with Oblivion.
Brush with Oblivion.
I will say this comic is a better sequel to Brush with Oblivion than Paint Misbehaving ever was.
You hate that episode.
I really hate that episode. And she immediately notices Drake and Honker. Well, Honker notices her, I should say. And Honker says, not her again. So we see that this is definitely in continuity because Honker remembers who she is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, I should say, I think that's Bart Simpson in one of the panels, isn't that?
That looks
Oh,
very
yeah.
much like it could be Bart Simpson, yeah. Yeah, I definitely see. Yeah, that looks like Bart Simpson. So
I think it's funny that she calls herself a pseudo anti neo postmodern deconstructionist, which is funny art wise because neo postmodern is basically the same thing as deconstructionist.
well, that's smart writing then, because she was calling herself that in the episodes too. I know she called
Yeah.
herself that in Paint Misbehaving.
Yeah, but it's just funny art joke.
So she paints the security guards into gigantic toes.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Whenever she uses her brush, I hear the sound effects from Brush with Oblivion.
Yeah, totally.
Uh-huh.
All right. So everybody jumps on top of the duck versions of Sparrow and Sylvania. A mob scene breaks out.
Yep, because they're now unguarded.
And then we get I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the acid-free bag and board protecting the number one collector's item issue of justice. I am Darkwing Duck. And then Honker sneezes, and Honker has to cover for his presence.
You mean Darkwing has to cover for Honker's presence?
That's what I meant. Yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me, long day. So yeah, Splatter recognizes Honker, which she should, and she says, "You and that annoying kid are not raining on my parade this time." What does she do, Stan?
She creates this monstrosity with a bunch of tentacles and a face that looks like it came straight out of old Mickey Mouse or Felix the Cat.
Wearing
Yeah.
a fez.
Yeah, Reiner's hat.
So this thing starts attacking Darkwing and ends up crashing into a panel discussion with a bunch of bloggers. One guy says, I mean, the main problem with everything is that I'm not in charge of it. But if you keep contributing to my patron pal, that sounds like pretty much every nerd on the internet.
Yeah.
I can do it better. Give me money. That's everybody now. Give me money, and I can do it. But anyway, Darkwing bursts in with this Felix Mickey thing, and we get the really cool Darkwing reference in the background here. What do we see, Tiff?
There's 3 cosplayers, and 2 of them are dressed as regular Negaduck, and in the middle is Negatron.
And they get super meta because one says, "Why doesn't that guy join our cosplay group?" And the middle one says, "Everyone knows Darkwing Duck wears a turtleneck. Do your research, dude." Because it bears repeating, he's wearing a shirt and tie in this comic now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so it's time to basically do what Brush with Oblivion did and go into comic books this time. So Darkwing, Splatter, and Honker end up in a 90s comic, which I want to point out, there's a sign over them says, 90s comics, please, just take them.
Yeah, that's because they mass produced so many comics in the 90s that a lot of them aren't worth a whole lot.
Yeah.
There are exceptions, but a lot of them you couldn't pay to give them away.
Yep.
That's what you mostly see in dollar boxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
They are going up a little bit lately, but
well, it's been 30 years now. That
Yeah.
would make everything's going to go up sooner or later. So we get a bunch of different scenes in different comic book styles. You guys are more comic book nerds than I ever could be. So who wants to explain what this first reference is about?
We could both take it because we had 2 different ideas of what it was. I thought it was trying to be like Rob Liefeld, the like horrible 90s comic artist that everyone always makes fun of because they're talking about them having too many teeth in their mouth and their feet being too little. And Darkwing to me looks a little like Cable, like the 90s version of Cable. And then Stan.
Yeah, and obviously Splatter Phoenix is made to look like the 90s comic character Lobo.
Did
Yeah.
those comics have lots of cross-hatching too, like Conquer says?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
they felt for sure did. And like the super detailed stuff is like Todd McFarlane. Wait, yeah, Todd McFarlane.
Yes,
I keep
I know.
actually
Seth
saying Seth
MacFarlane,
MacFarlane.
Todd McFarlane.
lots of McFarlanes.
Yeah. And I like how Honker says, I think all this weird cross-hatching is giving me a rash.
And Darkwing pulls out this impossibly big gun that's so powerful that when he tries to shoot it, it throws him back into a mountainside.
Yeah,
So they pop out of that comic, and Splatter moves past a bunch of washed up celebrities. They're screaming, have a headshot, only $20. No, buy mine, my movie outgrossed his. But the last guy all the way on the right who says, please buy something. I live in a refrigerator box. That's major courage from the Ducktales episode where no duck has gone before, who was a huge Shatner parody.
Courage of the Cosmos.
Yeah, that was like that was like one of the first big Launchpad episodes. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So it's time to jump into another comic from the international section. It looks like they're in a Brazilian soccer comic, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
They're drawn much more cartoony with the pie eyes and exaggerated features.
Actually, it kind of looks like a little bit. I didn't think about this before. It looks a little like those Italian Donald Duck Donald Duck comic books.
A little bit. Although I would assume if it was soccer, that's probably the origin is supposed to be Brazil. But
Yeah.
you're right, it does have that look of those European Donald Duck comics for sure, absolutely. Yeah, Darkwing and Honker are soccer players. The ball smashes Honker, and Splatter Phoenix is a cheerleader, and they're attacked by sentient soccer balls.
I think she's a ref.
Yeah.
Right, she is a ref. I'm sorry. She shows how much I know sports.
Don't worry, I'm not real big on the sports ball either.
Baseball's about as far as I go.
Go
Mets! Go Mets! They're doing good this season.
We're all honkers here.
Tiff, who do you said you think those soccer balls look familiar? Who do they look like to you?
Yeah, they look like the comic book Bone by Jeff Smith.
They definitely have that look.
Yeah, from the.
Yeah.
So they pop out of that comic, and this is cool. They don't go into an actual paper comic. They go into a tablet.
A Cintiq.
A Cintiq. Okay. My brother-in-law has one of those. I should know what that is. He's an animator. They pop up into a CGI 3D comic. What do you guys think of this?
I want this as an actual show.
Maybe a bit more polished, but yeah. I wouldn't mind if Darkwing was in CGI, as long as he looked like Darkwing. I wouldn't mind.
I guess, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate it if it looked like that. But I'm really not a fan of 3D animation.
I don't mind it if it's done well, but when it's not done well, it's horrendous. I mean, you could go the actual opposite. You can go the complete opposite, and it's like very stylized 2D. It looks terrible too. So it's like you might lose either way.
I feel like I will start to really think that computer animation's pretty good, and then I'll go back and watch like Sleeping Beauty or Fantasia, and I'll be like, no.
Well, yeah, I get it. But Darkwing is like really amazed at how good he looks in CGI. Like he's admiring his gas gun, and he's telling Honker to write the name of this program down. We can make a Darkwing Duck cartoon in wonderful 3D. And Splatter says, it'll never catch on. So then we get 4 panels in one page of 4 completely different styles. Again, you guys know this stuff more than I do. Tiff, do the first one.
Okay, the first one is like the Shadow. He's saying a line from the Shadow, or a version of the line from the Shadow. He says, who can say what larceny lurks in the hearts of women? Because
Which is,
standing
and
there.
it's appropriate because Darkwing was based on the Shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of similarities there.
And Stan, what's the next one?
The next one, it's referencing Adventure Time. Also, I realized I think the art style is kind of like Breadwinners, the
Yes.
Nickelodeon show.
Yes, I
Because I
see
knew
that.
I'd seen that smile on Darkwing on some other show before.
I mean, Tiffany mentioned as we were talking about this before that it looks very much like Gosling's painting from Brush with Oblivion. But now that you mentioned, what show was that again?
Breadwinners.
Yes, now that you mentioned that, the aesthetic just popped into my head. Whatever this is, it's taking a clear shot at cable kids TV,
Yeah.
where everything looks like this, and characters have gigantic eyes like Honker does here. There's something in my gigantic eyes. And Darkwing saying it's danger time, so you know it's definitely Adventure Time in some way. It's not
Right.
Adventure Time doesn't look like this. It's definitely a lot more along the lines of what you said, Breadwinners. But it's a gentle slam, but it's a slam nonetheless. Tiff, what's the third panel?
Third panel is like Frank Frazetta, the famous comic book artist. He did mostly like covers. He did a lot of like EC comics way back in the day, and Vampirella and Conan the Barbarian, obviously, which is what this is referencing. And he says he's from the kingdom of Frazetor.
Well, there you go. That's right there. That leaves no doubt at all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Stan, the last one?
The last one is a reference to Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, with a dialogue reference to the Batman v Superman movie.
Yeah, because that's what inspired what's his name? Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
that
do-
hack.
Yeah.
I love, though, how Darkwing is covered in Band-Aids.
Yeah.
And we got Splatter Phoenix as Gizmo Duck.
Yeah.
I mean, Gizmo Duck is this universe's Superman, so it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess Honker is Robin, kinda.
Yep. The Carrie Kelly
female-
version of Robin.
Yeah, female Robin in the Dark Knight Returns.
Nice. And this next page, actually 2 full pages, familiar to anybody who read comics really far back in the day, which I would guess all 3 of us. How comics used to have actual advertisements selling things you could send away for. All of it garbage, of course. Things like sea monkeys and X-ray specs.
Yeah.
I mean, we get Tired of Being a Wimp, something that you could take to make you look stronger. Like I said, the X-ray specs, the sea monkeys, a scary 7-foot tall ghoul. I remember ads like that. You can buy like a gigantic Frankenstein, a hypno disc, basketball shoes that got springs in them, and an ant farm, which Stan tells me has a very specific reference in it.
Yes, for anyone who knows the show Archer, the line, "Do you want ants? Because this is how you get them," is paraphrasing a famous line from Archer where they're like, "Do you want ants? Because this is how you get ants."
And you said it says it twice in that show, right?
In that episode, yes.
Yeah, I guess that's enough to convince me it's definitely a reference. And we have the hypno disc from Clash Reunion.
Yep.
Yep.
And of course, you really have to sit down and read some of this stuff because it's really funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we don't have time to read all this stuff out loud. It's just if you have the
Oh.
comic, don't scan right through it fast and read just what the characters are saying. Read all these ads. They're really funny.
Yeah, the ant farm actually is a Quacker Jack toy.
Nice. And Honker mentions he tripped on the staple. Of course,
Yeah.
if this was the actual comic I'm reading the paperback, there would be a staple right there where he tripped.
There's a staple right there, but it's a little weird because the middle staple is the page beforehand.
I screwed up.
Ah,
So they go back into reality, including, we get more cosplayers behind Splatter Phoenix that are based on Lord of the Rings, right?
yeah,
And a Doc Brown there too.
yeah.
So Goslin shows up dressed as Darkwing. She gets an entrance. And she says, I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the lingering smell in the convention hall that you dare not identify. I am Darkwing Duck. That's cute.
I love Splatter Phoenix's line to it. He's franchise. How nosh.
I know.
Yeah.
I love that too.
And a cute little scene, which isn't overdone. You know, it's very cute. The show probably would have done this. He surprised Goslin dressed as him. And she says, of course I did, Dad. You're my hero. And they hug. Very cute. I think it would have been done. And then it's undercut by one of my favorite jokes in the entire comic. Launchpad's there dressed as Gizmo Duck. Splatter runs by, screams, ah, I surrender. And then realizes, wait a minute, that's a costume, sorry. For a minute I thought you were the actual Gizmo Duck. And Darkwing's face.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Look at his eyes.
I thought you were going to say your favorite moment was what Goslin says to DW as they're hugging, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, she says to him, she references a few issues back that she kept one of those plant raptors that Bushman and Dr. Fossil made and hid him in the tower. He's nesting in your box of sweater vests. And Darkwing's like, there'll be plenty of time to ruin this moment later. Yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped right over that. So they were raptors, not T-Rexes. Okay, so they enter another comic, all 4 heroes now. It's an anime comic. We're not 100% sure who they're all referencing. My best guess on one of them, though, is I'm pretty sure Honker is Pikachu.
We would probably need Felicia to help us on this one.
Yeah, she could do that. We'll have to ask her when we're done with this. He's got the rosy cheeks and everything.
Yeah, and I noticed Darkwing has a metal arm, so he could be like Full Metal Alchemist.
And he goes Super Saiyan, right?
Yeah.
She still socks him, though. Goslin could be a Sailor Moon kind of character, but she has cat ears and a tail.
Yeah, which is common in anime, but not in Sailor Moon.
It's probably just a million different anime things in a blender.
That's
probably.
what I think.
Although the Pikachu honker is very specific.
Yeah.
And I think
Pikachu, or is he like Jigglypuff?
He's got the Pikachu cheeks.
But he's got the little flappy arms.
Well, he is a chick.
Yeah.
I would assume if this scene was in an episode, they would be talking in fast, dubbed voices.
Yeah.
I don't think a show would do that now because it might come across as racist. But in the 90s, they absolutely would have done that.
Yeah, just like in that Fest-O-Rama episode where they did anime.
Or even more on the nose, that Dexter's Lab short when they did Speed Racer.
They did at least reference how the translations don't always work.
You guys haven't seen the Dexter's Lab short I'm talking about, right?
I don't think so.
No, the characters like talk super fast, and he's like, "Didi, why are you behind my back?" She's like, "Why did you look there?" "Oh, I never look behind my back." Ha ha! It's like that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, I am familiar with Speed Racer enough to know how they talk.
And that's exactly what this probably would have been.
And none of them are like racial stereotypes though at all.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
But this was 2016, specifically that November this issue came out. So I think even then they would have been a lot more careful about it. This is not inappropriate at all. It probably would have been 30 years ago, but it's not now.
Yeah.
And our final comic is something super specific, and I'm going to let Stan take this one.
Well, first we should mention that we get to the final comic because Honker Chew has Launchpad throw him with a comic towards Splatter Phoenix. But
and he Yeah.
But the final comic sees them in a ad for Mostess Veggie Pies.
You're going to have to explain this one for the kids at home, Stan.
Oh, yeah. So back in the day, a lot of comic books had ads for Hostess fruit pies where a superhero or another popular character would defeat a villain with Hostess fruit pies, because no villain could resist the flaky, tender crust and the tasty fruit filling of Hostess fruit pies.
I remember those. So Spider Phoenix can't resist them, and luckily they're vegan. So
Yep.
right up her alley. Broccoli, parsnip, new turnip.
Yes, sound disgusting.
Yeah,
And
my stomach kind of does flips when Honker says no one can resist the fetid flavor of Mostess veggie pies.
ew.
They all sound disgusting, but I bet it wouldn't stop me and Stan from reviewing them on our YouTube channels.
I don't know. I might have limits, but then again, for April Fools next year, I'm going to taste test Pilk. So, and for anyone who doesn't know, Pilk is milk and Pepsi combined.
Ew.
Like I said, I'm gonna do it for April Fools because it's a meme drink.
I've never even heard of that. So anyway, Splatter is apprehended. Darkwing takes the comic and puts it into a bag, seals it shut. He should probably have it graded so she'll never get out of there.
Yeah.
And so it turns out Launchpad wins Best Costume. And it pretty much ends with Darkwing telling Launchpad, he says, I hope you like that unicycle, pal, because you're going to need it to get home.
And a nice expression on Launchpad's face.
I like how it ended like that. It's like it undercuts the sweetness of Goslin at the end going, yep, once again saved by Darkwing ducks. And then just at the end, Darkwing he lets Launchpad have it for dressing in that costume.
Yeah.
And our very last panel of this issue, Stan, what do we see?
We see the shadow of what could only possibly be a vampire potato with a bunch of tortured souls trapped with it.
Ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next issue.
You get the return of one of my favorite characters on Darkwing Duck ever.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she must be talking about Duane.
The good old country boy.
Yeah, I was like legitimately like giddy seeing that the first time.
So we have, in our last two issues coming up, we have a lot to talk about. I mean, we have a lot to talk about tonight too, really. This is a great story. I really, really love it. It's so self-indulgent. It's like that's the best part about it, though. I think these guys have earned it after all these years, just getting this meta. So let's rate this. Tiffany, go first.
I'm gonna give it a 5.
Woo!
I love this one. And there's not really, there's like no problems with it at all.
Dan?
Well, I wanted to be on this one for a reason. I'm also giving this a solid 5. It is my favorite out of the Joe Book series, and quite possibly my favorite out of any Darkwing Duck comic. I love all the references, the meta humor, the return of Splatter Phoenix. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a 5 too. It is every single thing Paint Misbehaving should have been. And that one even took place in a comic convention. And I know it's been like 25, 30 years and things have changed, but that episode just phoned it in so badly. Didn't even use Honker, for crying out loud. This one is just a massive improvement. Just the jokes are funny. Spider Phoenix is great as always, and the meta stuff is terrific. And it is one of the best of the Joe Books run. So solid 5. 5s across the board, guys.
How rare is that?
Yeah, it's a great comic. Seriously, anybody who slept on these things, who haven't read them, this is a good one to start with. So next week, of course, we have issue 7, which is a certain bushy villains coming back, and lots of old references to a certain couple of old episodes we're getting. So we'll get there. But we have some time, so let's get back to our mini reviews. I have a feeling I know where this is going, but Tiffany, which one do you want to talk about?
Okay, I had to resist every urge to troll you and pick Paint Misbehaving, but I didn't. I said Brush with Oblivion.
I figured you would have. We don't want this podcast to get that negative, do we?
It was really hard to resist, but yeah.
So
We're
give
running
us your thoughts.
So I have to go with this one. I love it. It's one of my favorite episodes of the show. I love Splatter Phoenix. I'm an art nerd, and I was an art student, so I love all the references in that too. And I love with all the paintings, I feel like for the average person, it just looks exactly like it would be the paintings that are on the wall, but they're not. They're very, very different in many different ways. Like, they did like their own artistic rendition of like famous paintings. Like the one that's obvious is American Gothic, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
they can't be human beings, of course.
Yeah. And then you got the Picasso, what's it called again?
Guernica?
Yeah, Guernica, which is like not even the same dimensions, but it still gets its point across, and it's way smaller than the original. You got Persistence of Memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is way, again, different proportions completely and way bigger than the original. I saw the original in real life and I touched it and got in trouble.
I know I've seen Guernica. I don't know if I've seen Persistence, though.
Yeah, it's tiny. It's really small.
And of course, Mona Lisa.
Yeah, Mona Lisa and the Washington crossing the Delaware. It's just, and the Mondrian and Jackson Pollock. But they're like, I love that they're like not the actual paintings, but they're just done so well that like you don't question it.
But I gotta say, this episode is one of the greatest tour de forces from Disney Australia.
Oh yeah, the animation is so beautiful in this one.
Any other studio would have ruined this episode. Like ruined it. Even Disney Japan. Like, what I love about this is its creepy tone.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine walking around in a museum after hours like that, and they nail the tone so well.
The music cues are great in it.
And just the unforgettable sound effect of her paintbrush.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of the score is unique too.
And just that character is so funny. They must have been, obviously it's all artists making it. They must have been cracking up thinking about every like girl in art school while creating the character. I mean, that's how it was for me. I'm like, that is everyone in art school.
And I love how every time they go into a painting, just like this comic, they're drawn differently.
Yeah.
And they commit to it.
I feel like this is one that maybe if they like redid it, they probably could do a lot more with it with computer stuff.
But the fact they did it just by hand.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable. Like, my favorite section is at the end where they're like just simple blocks.
Yeah, in the Mondrian.
Yeah, that part is great, and it's such a fantastic episode, and it's such a good one for Honker too.
Yeah, and I even like, there's something like cool about, when she goes to the criminal or whatever and is trying to sell the statue, and he doesn't want to, it's not worth that much money, and she's like, what do I have to steal the Mona Lisa to get any real cash? And that's funny because of the story of the Mona Lisa, how it was like a painting that nobody cared about until it was stolen. And that's actually what gave it its value.
Let's see if I remember by memory what the thug says to her when he says, sorry, sweets, if the neo-postmodernist backlash hadn't caught pre-anti-realism in its wake, you'd be sitting pretty. I did it.
Yay.
The very verisimilitude of my endeavors is far beyond the grasp of your petty little bourgeois minds. Well, hey, stealing.
Yeah, and then I love that she gives Darkwing a run for his money, even though he's the wordy one.
And one of my favorite entrance lines, I am the tube of cadmium yellow. That's impossible to open.
Yeah, so good.
But it all goes with the facial expressions and the animation. Like, oh, my favorite Herb bits of all time is when he's punishing Honker.
No food, no
no
water.
water, no sunlight, and his eyes are bulging, and he's like counting on his fingers, and Binky's like, Herb, what?
Oh yeah, guess we could feed you.
Until then, you're grounded up something fierce. Oh, it's great. And that one moment with Tank when you think he's protecting Honker, but he's only setting him up to screw him over.
Yeah. There you go, bud. That's you.
Mom, Dad, Honker ran away. And then if the episode wasn't surreal enough, you got the Mona Lisa lips.
Yeah.
Like, just the voice coming out of that thing. I think that was a cabaret singer they got to do that.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it was
it's
cool anyway. Just the idea that she doesn't steal the painting, she steals the smile is great.
put my kisser back on my casa.
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm a finger painting? Oh,
Yeah.
and that moment where he comes out and he goes, "That's all I can take off of you," and he bites her right on the ass. Oh, it's
Yeah,
the
and-
animation just sells every frame of this episode.
Yeah, and that look on Gosling's face when they're in her painting and she's just admiring, like being inside her own little world.
With the T-Rex.
Yeah.
And just another great bit when he tells Honker to spit it out. The animation just perfect on Drake, and he just gets it out. He like a sputtering balloon. He gets all the words out, and then you get the perfect Daffy Duck face on Drake as he's processing it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I could totally review this one all over again, just talking about the animation.
Yeah.
But we had Honker on that time, so we didn't want to bore Honker. Stan, do you have any thoughts on this one?
It's such a great classic episode. Splatter Phoenix is a very memorable villain. I love all the different art style changes. The humor's on point. You know, it's one of the greats.
Don't you think it's weird she never introduces herself?
Yeah.
And we only know her name because Honker says it once.
Yeah. I always like wondered
Yeah,
if there was like a missing scene in there.
But then they say her name so much in Paint Misbehaving, though, as if they want to overcompensate for it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's great. What a fantastic episode.
You don't like Surreal Man?
The whole episode is stupid. I'm sorry.
I can't.
Or
I was so excited about that though, because Magritte is my favorite surrealist painter, more so than Dolly.
I mean, it's a little creative, but then it gets caught up in like the Frankie Ferret stuff and the toaster-headed pink gorillas, and I don't like how she's so toned down as a villain that her henchmen keep beating up on her. She doesn't feel like the same character anymore. More than just having a different voice, they really dumbed her down.
Yeah.
But anyway, this Brush with Oblivion's on my short list of greatest episodes of all time.
Me too.
It absolutely is. So I guess that wraps up this episode, guys. So Tiffany, how can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Tiffany Silver Braun and Regurgitating Gertie, and I'm on YouTube at CarneyTube and at Radioactive Tiffany.
And Stan?
well, I've got 2 YouTube channels, DMC Jedi Man, DMC Jedi Man Gaming. I'm also on Facebook, and if you do want to friend me, that's fine. Just say that you're coming from watching St. Canard Files.
And I'm just on Facebook. Besides the podcast, I don't do things. I work. But anyway, we are the St. Canard Files, a Darkwing Duck podcast. We are on every podcast app. If you listen to a podcast on something, we're on it. And if you do watch us on YouTube, please subscribe. I know everybody says that. It's kind of just cliche to say it, but subscribe. That helps us out a lot. And I guess until next week, when things are getting a little potatoey. Until next week, then, everyone stay dangerous. Have a great night.
Bye.
Stay dangerous, everyone. Gotta go wash off that con funk.
Yeah, don't be a plebeian. Take a shower. Good night.